Welcome to Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig, your go-to podcast for unraveling the darkest and most perplexing mysteries of our time. And before we venture any further, let's give a big shout-out to our sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll, How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe, available on Amazon. It's a riveting read that dives deep into the aftermath of one of the most shocking moments in American history. Now, speaking of history, today we're putting our magnifying glass over an event that shook not just America, but the entire world. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Get ready, because this isn't just another history lesson. It's a tale of drama, conspiracy, and intrigue that will have you questioning everything you thought you knew. Imagine it, a young, charismatic president navigating the stormy seas of the 1960s, standing firm against the tides of change and conflict. It was an era of rock and roll, civil rights movements, and a Cold War that had everyone on edge. John F. Kennedy, a beacon of hope and progress, was the helmsman steering America toward a new frontier. But then, in the blink of an eye, it all came crashing down. We're talking about that fateful day, November 22, 1963, when the world stood still. Dallas, Texas, was the stage for a tragedy that would forever be etched in the collective memory. A sunny day turned into a nightmare, punctuated by the harrowing sounds of gunfire and the cries of disbelief. In this episode, we're going to take a detailed look at what happened on that infamous day, minute by minute. We'll recount the events leading up to those catastrophic moments and dissect the immediate aftermath. It's a story filled with twists and turns that could rival the best thriller novels. But wait, there's more. The plot thickens as we dive into the investigations and theories that emerged in the wake of JFK's assassination. From the official account of the Warren Commission to the wildest conspiracy theories involving the CIA, the Mafia, and even those closest to President Kennedy, trust me, we're leaving no stone unturned. We'll also explore the profound impact this tragic event had on American society. The assassination didn't just end a presidency, it fundamentally altered the trajectory of the nation. From eroding public trust in government to influencing foreign policy, the ripple effects are far-reaching and still resonate today. And of course, we'll reflect on the enduring legacy of JFK himself, a man whose vision and policies continued to shape America long after his tenure was cut short. From the establishment of the Peace Corps to the moon landings, his influence is unmistakable. So, buckle up folks, because this is going to be a wild and insightful ride. Stay tuned as we unravel the mystery and legacy of John F. Kennedy's assassination. It's a journey through time and tumult you won't want to miss. Picture this, it's America in the 1960s. You turn on the radio and hear the electrifying sounds of rock and roll. The Beatles, Elvis Presley, and the Rolling Stones are on everyone's lips. The country is buzzing with the anticipation and angst of societal change. Let's start with the social climate. The civil rights movement is in full swing. African Americans are fighting valiantly for their civil rights, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Just imagine the streets filled with passionate activists marching for freedom and equality. The air is thick with a sense of urgency and possibility. Now, let's take a look at the political atmosphere. The Cold War is at its peak, with the U.S. and the Soviet Union locked in a tense standoff. The threat of nuclear war looms large. Schools regularly conduct duck and cover drills, teaching kids to hide under their desks in case of an atomic bomb. It's an era of spies, secret missions, and a palpable sense of global tension. And sure, there's the everyday life stuff. You know, drive-in movies, TV dinners, and families gathered around their black and white TVs to watch the latest episode of The Twilight Zone. It's a time of both simplicity and complexity, a world straddling post-war optimism and the anxiety of an uncertain future. Then, there's the space race. The US and the Soviet Union are vying to explore the final frontier. Across the nation, people are glued to their screens watching NASA's every move. Everyone's dreaming of rockets, astronauts, and the possibility of humans landing on the moon. Kennedy's bold vision to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade has captured the imagination of millions. Economically, America is booming. Suburbs are expanding, cars are getting bigger, and consumer culture is flourishing. But beneath this veneer of prosperity, there's underlying tension. Young people, particularly those in counterculture movements, are rebelling against the status quo. The hippie movement is gaining momentum, with its cries for love, peace, and an end to the Vietnam War. Speaking of Vietnam, it's becoming an increasingly contentious issue. The U.S. is sending thousands of troops overseas, and the nation is deeply divided over the conflict. Protests erupt on college campuses, and draft cards are burned in defiance. The war's shadow looms large over the country's conscience. So, there you have it, a country in the midst of thrilling progress and heartbreaking division. It's into this eclectic, turbulent mix that John F. Kennedy steps as president. He embodies the hope of a new frontier, promising change and inspiring a generation. His presence is magnetic, his speeches, captivating. America watches, listens, and dreams. In this stirring, complex time with its dichotomy of triumph and turmoil, the the stage is set for an event that would forever alter America's trajectory. A bright November day in Dallas, Texas, the backdrop to a moment that shook the world and left an indelible mark on the nation's heart and soul. We've got rock and roll blaring through the transistor radios, picket signs waving in the fight for civil rights, and a nation on edge with the ever-present threat of nuclear disaster. It's a 1960s America that's as vibrant as it is volatile. And it's into this very crucible of history that JFK's story plunges, setting the stage for one of the most unforgettable chapters in American history. John Fitzgerald Kennedy, better known as JFK, is a name that resonates through the annals of American history. But let's take a closer look at who this enigmatic figure truly was. Born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, JFK came into the world with a silver spoon in his mouth, being the second of 9 children in the affluent and influential Kennedy family. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., was a successful businessman and political figure, while his mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, was known for her devout Catholic faith and unwavering dedication to her family. JFK attended prestigious schools such as Choate and Harvard, where he developed not only his intellect but also his keen interest in history and international affairs. During World War II, he served with distinction as a commanding officer of PT 109 in the Pacific Theater. His bravery in rescuing his crew after their boat was sunk earned him a Navy and Marine Corps Medal for heroism, quite the feat for a young man in his 20s. The Kennedy family had a deep-rooted ambition for public service, and JFK was no exception. Following the war, he entered politics, representing Massachusetts' 11th Congressional District in the House of Representatives, from 1947 to 1953. With his charm, wit, and determination, he quickly climbed the political ladder to the U.S. Senate in 1953. That same year, he married Jacqueline Bouvier, a woman whose grace and elegance would earn her a place in American cultural history alongside her husband. But it was in 1961 that JFK made his most indelible mark, becoming the 35th President of the United States at the relatively young age of 43. During his presidency, he ushered in a sense of optimism and hope, encapsulated by his depiction of a new frontier, a term he famously coined as a call to action for America's potential in science, space, and social progress. What made JFK especially beloved, and at times controversial, were his stances on civil rights and his vision for America. At a time of significant racial tension, he laid the groundwork for the Civil Rights Act, making strides toward racial equality that would eventually be championed by his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson. On the global stage, his leadership during the Cuban Missile Crisis arguably prevented a nuclear catastrophe, displaying a delicate balance of firmness and diplomacy that earned him further admiration. Moreover, JFK's administration was marked by bold and aspirational endeavors such as setting the stage for the Apollo moon landings with his ambitious goal to land a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. His famous words, "We choose to go to the moon," continue to inspire generations. Despite facing severe health challenges, including chronic back pain and Addison's disease, JFK's public image was one of suave confidence and vitality. His speeches were infused with charisma, challenging Americans to ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. This potent blend of personal magnetism and political vision earned him a place in the hearts of many, transcending the usual boundaries of politics. But who was JFK behind the scenes? Many accounts reveal a complex individual who grappled with the immense pressures and responsibilities of his role. His personal life was the subject of much speculation, often marked by both admiration and scandal. Yet, despite these trials, he remained a figure widely respected for his contributions to America's growth and his efforts to steer the country through some of its most turbulent times. In essence, JFK was more than just a president. He embodied the American spirit of resilience, ambition, and progress. His legacy is a testament to the idea that charismatic leadership coupled with a visionary approach can indeed shape the course of history. As we continue our journey, let's remember the man who defined an era with his aspirations and actions, a leader whose impact resonates even decades after his life was tragically cut short. Stay tuned as we move on to that fateful day in Dallas and dissect the events that unfolded with reverberations felt around the world. November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. Picture a sunny day with clear blue skies and temperatures reaching the mid-60s. Ideal weather for a presidential motorcade. An enthusiastic crowd lined the streets, waving flags and banners, eager to catch a glimpse of the charismatic leader, John F. Kennedy, and his glamorous First Lady, Jacqueline. The motorcade route had been chosen carefully, intended to maximize visibility of the president. The convoy departed from Love Field at around 11:40 a.m. JFK Jackie, Texas Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie, rode in an open-top 1961 Lincoln Continental, cruising past smiling faces and waving hands. For a moment, Dallas seemed to be the heartwarming portrait of American optimism. But then, everything changed in an instant. As the motorcade turned past the Texas Schoolbook Depository at Dealey Plaza around 12:30 p.m., the unthinkable happened. Shots rang out. Some thought they were fireworks, a jovial celebration suddenly turned sinister. But when grim realization set in, the world seemed to stand still. The first shot missed, hitting a nearby curb and injuring a bystander with bullet fragments. The second shot, however, hit its mark, striking JFK in the upper back and exiting through his throat. Governor Connally wasn't spared either. He was hit in the back, the bullet shattering his rib and puncturing his lung before exiting through his chest and embedding in his wrist. And then, the third shot, the fatal one? It struck Kennedy's head, dislodging fragments of skull and causing catastrophic damage. Blood and brain matter were everywhere. Jackie, in her pink Chanel suit, reached for part of his skull fragment, an act of love and helpless desperation. As Secret Service agent Clint Hill leapt onto the car, urging everyone to drive to Parkland Memorial Hospital, the motorcade sped away. But it was too late. Kennedy was declared dead at 1 p.m. 30 minutes that changed the course of history. Governor Connally, critically injured but alive, underwent emergency surgery. The nation was in shock. Less than an hour after the shooting, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested. He worked at the Texas Schoolbook Depository, where a mail-order rifle was discovered, tying him to the gruesome crime. Oswald's arrest, however, did little to pacify the grief-stricken public. By 1:33 p.m., an official announcement that President Kennedy had passed away was broadcasted. The confirmation of the unbearable loss sent everyone reeling. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was 3 cars behind in the motorcade, took the oath of office aboard Air Force One at 2:39 p.m., with Jackie Kennedy standing somberly by his side, still in her blood-stained suit. Her silence spoke volumes. "I want them to see what they did to Jack," she later explained. Oswald's life, too, would meet a tragic and bizarre end. On November 24, while being transported from the city jail to the county jail, Oswald was fatally shot by nightclub owner Jack Ruby. This act further ignited a whirlwind of conspiracy theories that have persisted to this day. In one harrowing afternoon, the world lost a leader, a nation lost its innocence, and a myriad of theories began to emerge in the shadow of Dealey Plaza. The immediate aftermath was a blur of grief, confusion, and the beginning of countless questions that perhaps may never find definitive answers. How did a sunny day in Texas turn into a historical watershed? This was the day that stopped the world in its tracks. Alright folks, let's dive into the murky waters of investigations and theories surrounding the JFK assassination. Now, with a tragedy as gigantic as the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, the swirl of theories and investigations was more inevitable than a tax return in April. First up, the government's official version of events, the Warren Commission. Established by President Lyndon B. Johnson, this commission set out to find answers. After interviewing 552 witnesses and exhaustively following leads, they concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. According to their report, Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas Schoolbook Depository. A neat little package, right? Not quite. The report failed to convince everyone and left a lot of folks scratching their heads. Now, if we change the channel for a moment, we find ourselves tuning into the realm of conspiracy theories. These theories range from plausible to flat-out wild, but hey, they're part of the tapestry of this mystery. Let's start with one of the heavy hitters, the CIA theory. Some believe the CIA orchestrated the assassination because Kennedy was seen as a threat to their Cold War agenda. With his push for peace and dialogue with the Soviet Union, he certainly wasn't towing the CIA's hardline stance. And right when you think it can't get any juicier, enter the mafia. The mob's motive? Hatred, mainly due to Kennedy's relentless crusade against organized crime, spearheaded by his brother, Attorney General Robert Kennedy. The link between Jack Ruby, the nightclub owner and mob associate who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, makes this theory even more tantalizing. Ever hear of the magic bullet theory? This is where things get a little Matrix-y. The Warren Commission's single bullet theory suggests that one bullet caused multiple injuries to both Kennedy and Texas Governor John Connally. For some, this theory requires an acrobatics degree to understand, and it has been a major catalyst for skepticism. But hold on to your hats, folks, because we're diving deeper. Let's talk about an idea straight out of a spy novel. The allegation implicating Lyndon B. Johnson. Some believe LBJ had the most to gain from Kennedy's demise and acted on ambition. A series of claims, ranging from altered motorcade routes to suspicious deaths of witnesses, add layers to this theory. How about another plot twist? Cue Russia and Cuba. The Cold War was in full blast, and animosity ran high. Oswald had connections to both nations. He even attempted to defect to the Soviet Union and tried to get a Cuban visa. Some suggest these countries wanted Kennedy out to gain leverage over the U.S. or change its leadership trajectory. Of course, every theory needs its fringe characters. Enter the grassy knoll theory, which, thanks to film and popular media, has taken on a life of its own. Some witnesses claim they heard shots coming from the knoll, not the depository. Zapruder film aficionados scrutinize this frame by frame, looking for shadows or figures. For many, the knoll symbolizes the epitome of mystery within this case. Then, let's garnish our discussion with the Umbrella Man. Yes, during the sunny Dallas day, a man with an open umbrella lingered, To some, it looked like a signal to shooters, or, ready for this, a high-tech weapon disguised as an umbrella. When he came forward later, he explained it was a protest symbol against Kennedy's father. But once a shadow of doubt sets, it's hard to erase. Now, it's fair to say, whether you're a die-hard believer in the official story or a card-carrying conspiracy theorist, delving into each of these hypotheses reveals just how deeply Kennedy's assassination imprinted on the American psyche. Generations have pored over every detail, thrived on every speculation, and theorized endlessly about what truly happened that November day. Alright, detectives, in the next part of our journey, we're going to explore how this monumental event didn't just take a president from the Oval Office, it reshaped the very fabric of American society. From public trust eroding like a sandcastle at high tide to seismic shifts in foreign policy, we're peeling back the layers on how the assassination's ripples are still felt today. Stay tuned, because this investigation isn't just cold, it's frosty. The assassination didn't just take a president, it changed America. From public trust to foreign policy, the ripples were felt far and wide. We'll discuss how this event reshaped the United States in ways still relevant today. Alright, picture this. It's a brisk November day in 1963, and suddenly the unthinkable happens. President John F. Kennedy is assassinated. At that moment, the country is thrown into a state of shock, disbelief, and mourning. We often emphasize the tragic loss of JFK himself, but today's focus is on another significant aspect: the profound and far-reaching impact this event had on American society. Starting with public trust, talk about a slap in the face. Prior to the assassination, there was a general sense of optimism. Kennedy was the youthful, energetic leader who represented hope and progress. When he was killed, that sense of optimism was shattered. People began to question the very fabric of the American system. Was there a deeper, darker reality behind this seemingly straightforward tragedy? This skepticism planted the seeds for a culture of mistrust in government that would only grow in the years to come. Next, let's talk about the media. The JFK assassination was one of the first events of its kind to be widely covered on television. It was a watershed moment for broadcast journalism. Millions watched live as Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin, was shot by Jack Ruby. This newfound immediacy brought both transparency and sensationalism to news reporting. The media's role in covering, and sometimes uncovering stories was forever changed. Now let's get to the public psyche. The assassination was a collective trauma that left a lasting impression on the American consciousness. It sparked a plethora of conspiracy theories, partly because the event was so shocking, so unprecedented, that people wanted to believe there was more to the story. The official explanation provided by the Warren Commission didn't satisfy everyone, leading to a plethora of alternative theories. This skeptical mindset has permeated many aspects of American life, making conspiracy theories a staple in our modern culture. Think of how events like Watergate or even more recent political scandals are often met with deep skepticism. That mindset traces its roots right back to 1963. And then there's the impact on foreign policy. Kennedy was in the midst of handling tensions with the Soviet Union, navigating the tumultuous waters of the Cold War. His assassination injected a considerable degree of uncertainty into international politics. How would the new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, handle these pressures? Whether Johnson's escalating involvement in Vietnam can be directly attributed to Kennedy's death is debatable, but what is certain is that the assassination created ripples that extended far beyond America's borders. Allies and adversaries alike watched closely, understanding that JFK's death represented not just a loss of leadership, but a potential shift in America's stance on global issues. Looking inward, the assassination also had a significant impact on social movements within the United States. The 1960s were already a time of tremendous social upheaval, with civil rights at the forefront. JFK had shown support for these movements, and his assassination left a void that MLK, Malcolm X, and others sought to fill in their quest for justice and equality. The loss was an emotional blow, but also served as a grim reminder of the volatile political landscape activists were navigating. Many wondered how much more difficult their fight for change would be without JFK's support. There's also an interesting paradox here. While the assassination crushed many ideals, it also galvanized various movements to push harder. This was a time when nothing could be taken for granted. People realized that change was neither easy nor guaranteed, prompting a renewed intensity in various fights for social justice. Finally, let's not forget the legacy of governmental oversight and security. The Secret Service was scrutinized, leading to significant overhauls in how presidential security was handled. The government itself became much more cautious, understanding that a national tragedy on this scale could devastate public morale and trust. The changes were both practical, improving security measures, and psychological, shaping how the government interacted with and appeared to the public. In sum, the assassination of JFK was a seismic event that reshaped America. It changed the way we trust or don't trust our government, altered the media landscape, influenced foreign policy, galvanized social movements, and redefined national security measures. As we reflect on this tragedy, it's clear that its impact extends far beyond 1963. continuing to shape the United States in profound ways. John F. Kennedy, often referred to simply as JFK, has left an indelible mark on the fabric of American society and beyond. Though his time in office was tragically cut short, the legacy he created continues to resonate across generations and borders. First, let's talk about the Peace Corps. Launched in 1961, this initiative was one of Kennedy's prided achievements. The idea was straightforward yet profound, sending volunteers abroad to support social and economic development in developing countries. Today, the Peace Corps remains a symbol of American goodwill, fostering cultural exchange and international cooperation. Imagine young Americans, fresh out of college, lending a hand in rural villages, teaching in local schools, or working in health clinics. Their work embodies Kennedy's vision of global peace and friendship, and it's still going strong more than half a century later. Now, have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered about the moon? Well, we have JFK to thank for our lunar escapades. His famous declaration in 1961 that America would put a man on the moon by the end of the decade wasn't just ambitious, it was revolutionary. Many were skeptical, thinking it was an impossible feat. But lo and behold, in 1969, Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, uttering those iconic words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." This monumental achievement not only fulfilled Kennedy's promise, but also showcased American ingenuity and determination. The space race wasn't just a competition between the US and the Soviet Union, it was a testament to what humanity could achieve when reaching for the stars. Another lasting contribution is in the realm of civil rights. While JFK's stance on civil rights was sometimes seen as cautious, his administration laid crucial groundwork. In 1963, he delivered a landmark address to the nation, calling civil rights a moral issue and pushing for comprehensive legislation. Though he didn't live to see it pass, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, enacted under Lyndon B. Johnson, carried forward many of Kennedy's principles. This legislation was a watershed moment, significantly advancing the fight against racial discrimination and shaping social policies for decades. Kennedy's approach to international politics also cast a long shadow. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a tense 13-day confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union, could have escalated into nuclear war. JFK's leadership during this period was marked by careful diplomacy and a commitment to avoiding armed conflict. His capacity to navigate this high-stakes scenario without plunging the world into chaos is often lauded as one of the great examples of crisis management. On the domestic front, Kennedy's economic policies left an enduring mark. His focus on cutting taxes to stimulate economic growth was an essential piece of his broader economic vision. Although the full impact of his tax policies was realized after his death, they set a precedent for future administrations, emphasizing the role of fiscal policy in driving prosperity. Then, there's the domain of science and education. Kennedy was a staunch advocate for bolstering education, particularly in science and technology, as we face the Cold War's technological race. His support for educational initiatives led to increased funding and an emphasis on producing scientists and engineers, fueling innovations that benefited industry and society. Remember, Kennedy's presidency came during a period of immense cultural upheaval. His youthful charisma and forward-looking vision resonated with a generation ready for change. Known as Camelot, his time in the White House has been romanticized as an era of hope and possibility, a stark contrast to the turbulent years that followed. His speeches, motivational and poetic, still inspire and are quoted to this day. Lastly, let's not forget Kennedy's contributions to the arts and culture. He and First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy brought a sense of elegance and sophistication to the White House, promoting the arts and preserving American heritage. From hosting classical music concerts to championing historic preservation, the Kennedys made culture a cornerstone of their time in office, enriching the national identity. So there you have it, the enduring legacy of JFK, from inspiring global volunteerism and venturing into the cosmos to advocating for civil rights, economic innovation, and cultural enrichment. His influence is indisputable. Though his presidency was all too brief, his impact is timeless, a testament to the profound effect one leader can have on the world's trajectory. Thank you for tuning in to Restless Killers and Mysteries with Roger Heilig. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the fascinating and complex world of the JFK assassination. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, hasn't it? From imagining America in the swinging 60s, to unraveling the enigma that was John F. Kennedy, and then navigating through that fateful day in Dallas. I truly appreciate you sticking with us for the entire journey. Now, before you go, don't forget to check out our amazing sponsor, Beyond the Grassy Knoll: How JFK's Death Changed American Society Forever by A.M. Wolfe, available now on Amazon. It's a compelling read that offers even more insights and dives deeper into how JFK's assassination shook the very foundations of American society. Trust me, it's something you don't want to miss. If you found today's episode as thrilling to listen to as I found it to make, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps to keep the mysteries coming. And hey, if you've got any theories or thoughts on today's topic, I'm all ears. Feel free to share your ideas on our social media channels. As always, remember to join us next time for another riveting episode filled with twists, turns, and the world's most captivating mysteries. Whether it's an unsolved murder, a puzzling disappearance, or another historical enigma, we've got plenty more to pique your curiosity and keep you at the edge of your seat. So, mark your calendars and prepare for more enthralling stories that'll make you question everything you thought you knew. Until then, keep your detective hats on and your curiosity alive.